Cases that aren't considered particularly important at the time can be hugely important years later. That's why you have to be extremely careful with these cases. Principles can be laid down in a case that is, for all practical purposes, not a controversial or well-known case that can affect our lives for a long time. So all the cases are important. With that said, one of the questions I'm asked is, do you enjoy yourself up there? Well, my response is usually, I enjoy myself on my RV. I enjoyed myself watching the Cornhuskers this weekend, not the previous 5 weekends. It's been a down year. I enjoy on hanging out with friends. We enjoy sitting around in our house. That's enjoyment. I am honored to be on the Supreme Court. I'm an idealist. I'm more of an idealist today than I've ever been, because this document is critical to the way we live our lives. Some years ago, I had an opportunity to meet with some young soldiers from Iraq who had been very seriously injured. Some were amputees. Some had been blinded. Some had very fresh wounds. And as I was spending time with them, they kept apologizing that they were taking up too much of my time, that I had more important things to do. And of course, I felt very small for them having to say that. And I told them that they, indeed, were the ones who deserved all of our attention. And I think they are. I think that when you look at those grave sites, whether they are in Arlington or on some foreign shores, or if you look at the Vietnam Memorial, you'll know that so many people made it possible for us. And so each year I take my law clerks at the end of the term to Gettysburg so that they can understand why those people died and gave us the kind of constitution and country that we had. It is easy at the end of a term to become cynical and to think that, well, this is about ids and ibids. This is about stare decisis or some legal doctrine or that. But it's a lot bigger than that. It's a lot more important than that. I think Lincoln put it best, and I have them read the Gettysburg Address. But he did put it best, and I draw direction in some of my darkest hours. I've drawn direction and inspiration from his words at Gettysburg about these people. He said, and I'll end with this, "It is for us the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain." And I think it is for us, each of us, to resolve that all the people who made this country possible, whether they fought in wars, whether they raised families, whether or not they marched across the country to build farms and industries, that those who gave so that we can be here shall not have sacrificed and lived and died in vain.
What helped you stay so consistent in your philosophy and interpretation of the Constitution in spite of the relentless attacks on you?
A friend of mine asked me a question who was dying. He said, "Clarence, what do you tell a dying man who has no faith?" And I don't know. I truly don't know. I think in so many ways the thing that allows all of us, or me in public life, to remain steady is an abiding faith. And I think you've got to. I use my litany of humility. I keep it directly across my desk from me. that you understand that it's not about you. It's about things that are far more important than you, and whether people are mad at you has nothing to do with whether you're right. You know, you can be in the middle of a hurricane, or you can be on a calm day. North is still north. You could be in a thunderstorm. North is still north. People can yell at you. North is still north. It doesn't change fundamental things. And in this business, right is still right, even if you stand by yourself. And I think you've got to be comfortable with that.
What can the average citizen do to raise the level of public debate to truly discuss and resolve the policy issues of today? And there was another one about how the level of political discourse has reached a low point. How can we, both in terms of the court system, the judicial system, and in terms of general political debate, get things back to where they should be?
You know, one of the things about life, the older you get, the less you know for certain about some of these things. You know, you can get real humble after a while. As my granddaddy used to say, boy, you just live long enough, you'll see. Maybe that's a Southern thing. I don't know, boy. It's almost as though he cursed you. You just live long enough. You know, I think that good manners are important. And we need to just think, where did our good manners come from? Why were good manners important? Why was behaving properly important? Why did we say to our kids, well, you can resolve this without yelling and screaming? That this isn't the way we behave in our house. Why was all that important? I just want you to think about very simple things. I hear people in this town, they think it's really cute to make little nasty comments about people. Boy, that really sounds great, you know? That really makes you a big person because you just came up with some cute slur, you know? And that's what gets over for it in this town as being sort of genius, or it's a word, it's something like that. I just want you to think of this, though. Let's say, and we all are at points in our lives where, we know people who've been in surgery or we've had surgery. If you were wheeled on that gurney into surgery and you heard the people, the staff in the operating room in that kind of discourse where they're slighting each other, calling each other's names, questioning each other's progeny, and all sorts of things like that, in a tone of voice that suggests they're not doing anything constructive, how many of you would let them put you to sleep? You would figure out a way to limp out of there, crawl, or feel your way out. Now, if we would not allow that in the operating room, why do we think that's a good way to choose who will have control of our nuclear arsenals?
As a working mother of a 17-year-old, I'm a widow, what would your words of guidance be?
I don't know what you tell kids when you almost consistently send messages of hopelessness to them. I grew up my grandfather used to say, we were poor but proud. So the neighborhood was clean, people obeyed laws, people believed in the country, people were patriotic, people went to church on Sunday. That didn't mean there wasn't anything wrong, but those were all the messages that you got every day instead of this message of hopelessness. With respect to raising a 17-year-old, God bless you. Because we're doing our best, I'll tell you. But but then again, I'm sure my grandparents felt the exact same way. So I think at some point we all have to know that just because it doesn't look like it's going to work today, that doesn't mean it's not going to work. So that's why, if you look at the first line in my book, I was 9 years old when I met my father. Boy, things aren't starting out really good here, are they? I mean, things aren't looking up at this moment. the house burns down, then really not looking up. So you move to this terrible slum. Now things are looking really bad. The story doesn't end where it looks bad. It's just beginning. And the point of the book is just because it looks bad today doesn't mean it'll be bad tomorrow. In fact, it might be great.
Your book now out, so much personal information on the table. The press tries to portray you as, quote, angry. But I've always seen nothing but a very happy man. The next question is, what is your secret as being as jolly as you are in the midst of so many tribulations in your life?
I really don't have any tribulations. I mean, think about it. Just really think about it a second. Look where the book started. You know, have you ever seen people who come from countries that never had much, how happy they are? I met a couple who were both in concentration camps, and they are as happy a couple as I've ever seen. They know what the other side looks like. And anytime they had a full meal and prosperity around them, air conditioned, they were happy. And me, I'm big on air conditioned, so but look, what is there for me to be unhappy about? What is there? Look where it all started. Look at this great country. Look what I've had. My wife is my best friend. We can sit on the bus for hours. I have an RV, and we can sit there. We just love being together. Then, look at what I've been appointed by a president of the United States to do, to serve the country in a way at the highest part, one of the highest parts of our government. Look at the education I've been afforded, the books I've been able to read. And finally, let me make this point. My wife had a bust of my grandfather made right after I was confirmed. And I put it up on a bookshelf where it looks down on me. And he's that brooding omnipresence. And he's looking down on me with one of his favorite sayings inscribed on it. Old man Kant is dead. I helped bury him. And here's what I wondered on the days when self-pity is consuming me. I look up at him. How could I complain to him? No education, no father, raised in part by a freed slave. In Jim Crow South, he never complained. My grandmother never complained. How can I tell him that as a member of the United States Supreme Court, I can complain? I have every reason to be happy, none to be sad. So I told my law clerks that when I pass away, if it's tomorrow or the day after, paint a happy face on it, say he did the best he could, and go on with your lives. Thank you all.